Hello again, everyone. Edwin Learnard back once again in this YouTube astrological segment. I'm going to be talking about transit Pluto Sextile or Trine Natal Uranus. Now, this transit could manifest in power, control, transformation, passion, desire, and probing, being in harmony with your friendships, your goals, and your aspirations. Now, I'm going to elaborate and expound on that. This doesn't mean that you're going to be uh, romping over or being controlling your friends, but this is a time where you have likely have more control over your friendships, where they might be, if they had been somewhat erratic and sporadic. This is a time where you might be able to have control over more to when to see them and have a little bit more consistency in interactions with them, and especially if they had been somewhat, erratic and sporadic previously. And this is also applying to your goals and aspirations. This is about having more control over that in your future at this point in time as well. If you have your natal Uranus and Capricorn, those goals and aspirations in the future, it might be tied into something with business or the government or accounting or dentistry, information technology, as some examples. And it can also be a time, as well, where when this transit does take place, it's also a time to have that more of that passion and desire for your friendships. If there was a time for the transit where you didn't really have, feel much like apathetic regarding your friendships, people even prominent groups, clubs, and organizations. This could be the time where you're more desirous of those things, of having those things in your life. And it's also could be a positive time if you need to make any major change or transformation regarding your friendships. If there's some friends that you feel they're to your detriment, it can be a time where it could be very positive for removing those people by leaving them, you know, let them be. Moving forward, Uranus is very progressive energy. It's futuristic. It's moving on. It's a time where you can have that desire and passion for your friendships, for groups, clubs, and organizations without being overly obsessed with them. Now, the thing is, when you have this transit, some people may wonder, well, what's the difference between this transit and transit Pluto making a conjunction to the natal Uranus? Well, the transits are comparable and similar, but they're not exactly the same, because keep in mind a conjunction is neutral and it's intensifying and integrating. When you have transit Pluto making a conjunction to one's natal Uranus, it could manifest in being very, could be very obsessed and fixated with goals and aspirations. It could give a tremendous amount of passion and desire for them, but it could be where you're obsessed and fixated with them to the point, to the exclusion of other things in your life, which is not always good. And conjunctions have good and bad qualities, and the sextile or trine aspect is more about just having that right amount of passion and desire for friendships with goals and aspirations without getting to a point where you're fixated on them, to the point where you become oblivious to other things in your life. And again, it's also, it's that time to have that passion, that desire to do things in groups, clubs, and organizations. If the natal Uranus is in Sagittarius, it might be some group that's associated with sports or publishing or advertising. It could be exploration or long distance traveling as some examples, or a religious group. Now, the thing about this too is, Uranus, anatomically is associated with the ankles, the shins, the calves, nerves, and circulation. So if you had been, say, procrastinating or hesitating on those matters, if you have anything that I just described that's anatomically, connected with Uranus, this is the time again to have that passion and desire to actually do something about it. Pluto is also associated with surgery, so it could be an auspicious time for a surgical procedure on one or more of the things I just described that are associated with Uranus. If you are having any kind of problems, physical related issues with those matters at this point in time. And the thing about this too is this is a time for you as well. When you have this when you have this transit as well, I would say that if you are making a major transformation in your life, a major change, you can balance that while still having your interaction with groups, clubs, organizations, society, your friendships at this time. If you're going back to natal Uranus being in Capricorn, it could be friendships, could be ones that are older people. It could be people that are involved in business or the government, people that are very success oriented, or people that are in some kind of Capricorn field, such as politics, the government, information technology, accounting, dentistry, as some examples. And it's also a time as well, if you're dealing, say, with some crisis or upheavals going on in your life, it's a time where you're more have the opportunity to balance that and not let it conflict with your friendships and the pursuit of your goals and aspirations when this transit does take place. And people, it's also a positive time to get support, whether it's moral, emotional, or monetary support. If you're dealing with some kind of unpredictable event, something that happens spontaneously, that was completely out of the blue. Uranus is also connected with what's bizarre or unusual. Um, it can be a time if you're dealing with some kind of unusual situation going on. It can be a time where you can, as far as deep research goes and investigating, you can maybe figure out, what's actually going on through probing, through deep research, through investigation, whether it's online or what have you. And Uranus is also, about doing about the unorthodox. It could simply be just doing something basic in an unorthodox, manner. It's like if you have, the gravity light as opposed to a conventional light, and having more of that, the passion, desire to do things that are not done generally in the way that you are accustomed to doing so. And it's about having more of that passion, desire for things that are innovative at this time. Even if you're somebody that's very orthodox and conventional, a person that really is stuck to the true and the tried, and you generally don't like to go outside the box, it still may be a time where you're going to feel more up to doing something with product. It could be just simply products that are more innovative, that are things associated with new technology at this time. And the thing about this too, it's also a time where it could be very auspicious for just simply getting control of your freedom and independence. If you're in a situation where you felt somewhat confined, it could just simply be being at home where you're renting a room out, or you're doing something, you're in a domestic situation where you feel very inhibited, where you can't do really the things you want to do when things you want to do when you really want to do them. This is the time where you might be able to gain more power and control over that, as an example. Now, another way this transit could be expressed, it could be very positive for passion, which is Pluto. It just could be for moving toward the future, which is Uranus. Let's say, for example, if the natal Uranus is in Taurus, the future could be associated with being a pawnbroker, doing something with carpet laying, geology, agriculture, architecture, as some examples. Um, it could also be a time where it's auspicious to get support, which is Pluto, and it can be for something connected with a group, club, or organization, which is Uranus. Let's say, for example, if the natal Uranus is in Pisces, it could be a metaphysical group, which includes astrology, or something with photography, chemistry, poetry, dancing, as some examples. Hold on a moment, people. Sorry about that, I'm back, but anyway. And also, too, it could be a time where Pluto-related people, when I say Pluto-related people, I'm referring to people that are in Plutonian professions, which could be insurance, recycling, tax examination, the occult, which includes astrology, forensics, investigation, or it could simply be somebody you're in an intimate or deep connection with. And those people can be in harmony and agreement with your goals and aspirations, which is Uranus. If the natal Uranus is in Gemini, as an example, it could be doing something. Those aspirations can be connected with communication. It could be car sales or something that requires manual dexterity, like working on auto or refrigeration, doing something with auto or refrigeration mechanics. Um, it could be also a time where it's propitious for control, which is Pluto, again, over your freedom and independence, which is Uranus. If the natal Uranus is in Sagittarius, as an example, it could be like freedom, could be associated with traveling abroad. It could be adventure, higher education, sports, the outdoors, as some examples. And it's also having, it could be a very positive time for having the desire and passion, which is Pluto, for doing things with the father, which is Saturn. If the natal Saturn is in Capricorn, it could be a Capricorn sun, moon, or ascendant person, or one that embodies Capricorn characteristics. Anyway, people, that'll conclude this YouTube astrological segment. Until next time, Edwin Learnard saying stay well.